Yes, sir. We are back for a little UFC action on this Saturday afternoon. And I got my crew with me here. We got Dan and JVC back for us today. We had to bring the big guns back after that. God, I got crushed on that card last week. I don't hide from losing. I got absolutely killed. Dan, I know you struggled a little bit. JBC smiling down there because he fucking crushed the card. So I'll start with JBC. What are you running for president here? You're like
Richard Nixon. No, being there in person to watch Imavov put it on Cannonier, that was amazing. You know, the only thing that went wrong on that card was the Marquez fight. Everything else was great.
It was amazing if you like quick stoppages and you have fucking the winner.
Although I lost the MMA by one punch, and I needed Imavov to get one less punch, so it was a bit of a Pyrrhic victory.
Wait, you lost to a team with Imavov
by one punch?
Chat, that's justice right there. Justice was served, Dan.
Like, I was there in person, and I was like, you know what? Like, I was cheering so hard when they stopped the fight.
Split? What was the split that you had? It was
like my split was like I was gonna get like 35, 40K, and then it went down to like a dick because it was like a 25 chop on Imavov.
That's pretty good though. You had you were one punch
because it had no main event. It had no main event.
Okay. So you faded the main event. All right. Nice. Dan, I alluded to it a little bit, but I'm assuming your Saturday went close to how my Saturday went last week. And I know that because you almost forgot which card was last week.
Yeah, I tried to totally wipe it from my mind, forget about it, and move on to this week.
I do want to say one thing about being there in person. Raul Rosas is a fucking star, dude. People love that motherfucker.
Dude, I love that motherfucker. I love that dude.
Y'all went from USA chats to fuck you, Ricky.
Yeah,
that was great.
I was like, this crowd doesn't know what the fuck it wants.
Hey, they want one thing, and then they'll go right to another thing.
People were not happy about Imavov, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, no, I can see that.
Frank Russian didn't go over in Kentucky. I'm shocked.
JBC was one of the few people cheering like crazy for him when he finished them.
Yeah,
that was good. Like being on Furo in Atlantic City against Blanchfield.
Yeah,
we were sitting behind a full row of Blanchfield's friends and family.
Oh, dude, I gotta go in for this one. So, who's the guy that got knocked out by the liver shot like real bad? Radke. We were sitting literally 5 seats to the left of Radke's like mother and aunt. And so I could see them standing up the whole fight. I'm like, holy shit, it's Radke's like mom and his aunt. Like, it's like they look like him, like, they're like very much sweating it. And then when he got knocked out, they both broke down in tears.
Oh no.
It was fucked up.
Yeah, that's got to be the worst for like a mother watching their son or daughter, for that matter, like get the shit kicked out of them and get like dropped like that.
Bro, and it looked dangerous. Like he went down like bad.
Oh, he got that knee literally just shut everything down. Just everything. He just went like that.
They both just started crying and got up and left.
Oh my god.
That dude is super, and I like Radke in that fight, but that dude he fought was super dangerous. That guy he's lethal on the feet. But all right, we got a new weekend, new card. Hopefully pick some winners here today. And obviously we'll go. We got a few fights that were canceled, some weight misses. A little bit, but we still got 11 fights on the card to talk about here, so we'll get it rolling here, starting with the first fight here on the card. And we got Josephine Nutson versus Juliana Pastri. It's called her Juliana. It's Julia Pastri. 7,100 for Pastri, 9,100 for Nutson. And I'm going to start with you here, Dan. What are you seeing here with this fight? I really like some of the women's fights on this card, and I'm probably going to be heavy on them from a DFS side. But what are you seeing here with this fight?
Yeah, it looks like we're all on the dog in Pastri. She's got more power. She's got more volume. Knudsen is more technical, but I think Pastri can like push the pace, kind of she's more aggressive. And that, I mean, especially on the DFS side, is something that I would rather target. Knudsen, thus far, she really, really struggles to find finishes. not to say that she can't, but like, you know, it's definitely a trend at this point. Pastri is also going to have a reach advantage, which she usually doesn't have. I thought that was notable. Durability, I don't think either has been knocked out, but I will say that is like a ding on Pastri. She's far more hittable. I think this fight's going to get overlooked mainly because it's a woman's fight right at the beginning of the card. Pastri has shown some finishing ability in the past against worse fighters. But I don't know. I tend to think Knudsen is a little bit overrated. People really, really seem to like her, but I'm just not like what I've seen doesn't blow me away, and I don't think it really justifies this line. So that's where I'm at.
You mean so her victory over Marnik Mann, where she had 3 takedowns, almost 12 minutes of control time, that didn't get you going? That
it's actually a little. It's concerning that she wasn't able to put her away because Mann is basically like a punching bag in there. Like
man shouldn't be in the UFC. Like she should not be in the UFC. So yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat as you. Nutson has no power. It's almost too like she has the speed advantage, and you say like she's the more technical girl. I just think she has more speed and quickness, but it feels like she's like looping when she throws, and it's kind of like she runs in there and she's trying to throw so fast. It's almost like too fast at times, it feels like to me, and there's not enough like power. Whereas Pastri, like she'll sit and she'll move forward. And I think that's the one thing that Josephine hasn't really gotten yet, was a girl who's just going to literally move through her and just try and move her back on her back foot. And then how does she fight when she's moving on her back foot? Because Palastri's going to try and stand in the middle and say, I'm going to throw with you. And she's got more power than Josephine. So I think this is a really interesting fight where I wouldn't be shocked if this finished inside the distance with Pastri here, but I do like her as a bet, and I like her for DFS a lot. JVC, what are you seeing here with this fight?
Totally agree with both of you. I think Pastri is going to push the pace, and I have her big as a bet. I think she's a great DFS play, but contrary to what Dan was saying, I don't think it's going to go underlooked. I think people are going to play Pastri, especially with the dearth of options at the base with Wilson, Flick, and Johnson. She opens up a lot of lineups that I think wouldn't be openable, I guess, otherwise. So she may get a little chalky, but I still think it's a good play. I like her to win, and I like her to finish.
What do you have them at right now, Dan? What do you have these fighters at? Ownership.
Knudsen at 20 and Pastri at 22.
And JVC, you think it's going to be higher for sure, like on the dog?
Pastri, I think, may get up to 30 or closer. It depends how much Almeida people get. I mean, you kind of have to make a choice down there. I mean, people are probably going to take high stand, but yeah.
Yeah. The only thing I will say with Dan's point about it is the first fight. And I know just people, if you're just hand building lineups and stuff like that, people are terrified to take that first fight because they don't want their night to be over right off the bat.
Well, your night could be over right off the bat if she knocks her out and gets 120.
Well, that's true. Then you're going to be right the other way off the bat. I'm saying people's thinking it's funny with MMA, but they don't want it. They don't want to lose their night on fight one. You know what I mean?
Which is funny because it's like, if you look at other sports, people all want to play the first game.
Yes, exactly. Like in NBA and stuff like that, the first game is always very popular. Yeah. 100%. It's weird. It's weird like that. I don't get it. You can just bet if you lose your DFS lineups for the night, you can just bet the rest of the night. I don't know, or play Showdown. I don't know. But all right, we're all on the dog here. I think she's a good bet. JBC loves her too, so got some confidence here. But good fight, I think, for DFS just because it's a chick fight. Don't rule it out to be maybe a banger. Honestly, I could see it being a fun fight, but. Let's go to the next fight here. And we got Nurden Becky. I might say that name wrong. JVC can correct me after, versus Costa. Costa 8,500. Nurden Becky 7,700 on DraftKings. JVC, how bad did I butcher that name?
I don't know how to pronounce it. I just stick with Shyon.
Oof. That's better, actually. I should have just went with the first name. All right, we'll go with Shyon there. What do you see here with Shyon versus Costa?
I like Costa a lot in this fight, and I don't think it gets out of the first round. I think he just gets in there, fucking just tears him apart. I don't think he really has anything for him. Shyon, the number one thing I remember with Shyon is that he won the fixed fight against fucking James Krause's boy. And that's like all I could, it's like that's what sticks in my mind. And so I can't really get a vibe on how good he is as a fighter because that sticks in my mind. But I know he's not on Costa's level. So I'm going with Costa.
Who is his boy? Which was the fight that he won? Do you remember who it was?
Name? Yeah, hold on.
Yeah, I'm wondering who that was. I'm trying to think in my head.
Derek Minner?
Derek Minner.
Oh, Derek Minner. Okay. Yeah.
And so that was actually his last win was against Derek Minner.
That's his only finish in the UFC.
His only finish in the UFC was when a guy took a dive.
Yeah.
It was very the ref was not interested in stopping.
Yeah, and it came out like 2 days later, and it's like they're investigating this. I was like, no shit.
Shocking. All right, Dan. Well, with that news here, I'm assuming you're on Costa too. I think Costa's the right side, but where are you at?
I'm on Costa by decision, but I don't really find much wrong with what JBC's saying about him finding a finish either. Like I have, like from a DFS perspective, the pricing on the fight isn't restrictive, and I do think that this fight also is going to go overlooked relative to like the stuff around it, because it does have it doesn't have quite as good finishing odds as the fight around it, but those might be like a tad low. I think. Yeah, I definitely prefer Costa. I will say Shyon, like another kind of like ding on him is he's like the third most expensive dog, he's one of the more expensive dogs, but he's not even like in the top 3 of finish rate amongst the dogs. So I'm not really super interested in him. I definitely prefer the Costa side, but he's going to need an early finish to be optimal, most likely.
Yeah, and that's my thing with him is one thing that from watching his fights, he's kind of a slow starter a little bit in ways it feels like when I watch him. Almost like he's trying to figure things out. So if you like him by finish, I would go on FanDuel. You can get rounds 2 or 3 at plus 850 for Costa to finish by KO or TKO. So I kind of like that bet just for a fun bet here, but I'm 100% on the Costa side. I think if it goes to decision, probably not optimal like Dan says, but if he gets a second round finish, he could be optimal at 8,500. So I wouldn't rule that out.
That works.
Yeah, I like it. So let's do that. 8,500. We're all on the Costa side. All right. So far, 2 for 2 on fights, and we're all on the same side. That almost never happens 2 fights into any show when all 3 of us. So this might be the card where everything turns around for me. We might be doing a turnaround.
On the main event. I know we disagree on the main event.
We're definitely going to disagree on a few fights coming out. I went that way because I know it's going to happen at some point, JBC, so I had to get there. Well, let's go to your boy, Weston Wilson here. Weston Wilson, 69, got the 6,900 tag on DraftKings. You know that's good. Against Sergey. Going to spell that name wrong probably, but 9,300 for Sergey. Wilson, 6,900. JBC. A lot of people probably are liking Sergey inside the distance probably, but you like a little Weston Wilson. Tell us why.
Well, I mean, for a 6,900 cost, you're getting a plus 350 inside the distance line, which is better than Shyon's inside the distance line, as Dan alluded to earlier. So, obviously there is a high risk of him getting a 0, but if you're, as far as like the $15 lotto, any kind of big MMA contest, you're trying to moonshot. Weston Wilson is definitely the piece at the bottom that has the best chance to get a lot of points.
Yep, I like it. I think it's an interesting play here that not many people will be on. I doubt even with Optos you're going to get a ton of him. And you're going to need to pick a dog or 2 here. People are going to be playing, the opposite side, the favorite a ton. So that's a good way to get a little different, especially if you're just hand building a few lineups, throwing a Weston Wilson lineup or 2. Not a bad idea. Dan, which side are you on this card here? Who you got?
I mean, I pick Sergey. It's really hard to just straight up pick Weston Wilson. You know, the most likely outcome is Sergey knocks his head off. And hopefully that's the last time we see of Weston Wilson. But it's really like a battle of weakness versus weakness. So Wilson has 0 chin, but Sergey has 0 grappling. You saw that on his like road to UFC fight against Jubilee, where he just got dominated on the mat hilariously by Jubilee, who is also not good. It's probably not going to happen, but this is definitely like Wilson's best shot at a win. And I think Sergey is just like, I mean, his money line is outrageous considering what we've seen from him.
Yeah.
And yeah, Wilson is free. Like if he's able to pull off a win of any kind, he's likely to be optimal. Yeah, but Sergey himself is pretty reasonably priced at 9,300. Like you don't have Ikram on the card anymore, so you've got plenty of salary to spend. I'm going to be pretty heavy on both sides of this fight.
Dan, I'm just going to help you out here. So this is how you pick Weston Wilson. You grab your nuts and you click his name and you bet him. That's how you do it right there. I could show you how to do it real fast.
I'll be betting him. I'll be playing him a bunch.
Well, you said I don't know how to just pick him straight up.
As a straight up pick.
I think you can though, because listen, if Sergey, first of all, we know that he's going to just try and knock this dude's head off. But what happens if in the first round that doesn't happen and it gets into the second, into the third round? And JBC didn't even mention that the first 2 fighters Weston Wilson has fade, straight killers in Silva and Brito. Like they did him a disservice giving him those 2 for his first 2 fights. So I mean, I think Weston Wilson is a sharp bet and a sharp play. So I like the call by JBC. I might have to change my pick here because JBC kind of talked me into it, and I kind of like it. So Weston Wilson, 6,900. I'm going to get some of him in my DraftKings lineups. What do you got for ownership here, Dan? What's the ownership looking like?
It's like insane we're talking about Weston Wilson as a great play, but I've got them at 38 and 13, Sergey and Wilson. So Wilson is going to be second lowest owned fighter on the entire.
Wilson being less than Jimmy Flick is asinine.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Wait, Jimmy Flick's going to be higher owned than Wilson?
Slightly, 17 to 13. But, I mean, a lot of that is obviously recency bias because he was able to beat Malcolm Gordon, who I believe
was able to get that fluky finish on dumbass Malcolm Gordon when Malcolm Gordon was killing him. And then he just like shelled up as he was getting beaten up. And then Malcolm Gordon fell over because he
Malcolm Gordon, he was like an extreme money line value on that slate. And we got absolutely murdered on that. But I think that's why Flick is going to be higher than Weston Wilson. I'm happy to exploit that.
Yeah.
Hospital. This is going to be a hospital fight.
You think Weston Wilson can finish, Sergey?
He certainly can on the ground.
He's going to have it. I don't think he wins a decision. I don't think that. I mean, I'd be surprised if this fight made it to a decision.
Yeah, it's not going to a decision.
Joe Ruff, you said it. I didn't say it. So, I mean, it's a good point, but you said it. So, I wasn't going to go there. JSU needs a fresh cut. Yes, I do. I love how I need a fresh cut. I mean, what about JVC? The man's growing a beard. It's going to be down by like his belly by the time I get a haircut next. Like, JVC, are you going to let that thing grow like longer?
This hasn't been that long, man. Like, I'm kind of just like trying.
How long? It feels like it's been long. It hasn't been long.
Maybe April.
Okay. You going to let it go? You going to through the summer?
I don't know, man. I'm debating it. My wife hates it, so that's a positive.
Yeah, that thing's coming up. I was gonna say you look comfortable though, so maybe you.
No, I'm that means I'm gonna keep it.
That means you're gonna keep.
Yeah.
Okay. Well. All right. There you go. Fuck the wife. I guess she can just live with it apparently. So, all right. Let's go to the next women's fight on this card. I said I like the women's fights on this card here, and here's another one. Got Gabriela Fernandez, 9K for Fernandez versus Carly Judice at 7,200 for Judice. JBC, I'm going to go back to you because I know you really like a bet here. What you got?
I'm on Carly here. I mean, I feel similarly about this fight as I do to the first women's fight. Obviously, Fernandez is a vastly different fighter than Nutson, but I just think the line is too wide, and the market has reflected that. I think it opened, maybe Judice was around 180, 190, and now she's down to 140. I think we're seeing some 140s. I just think that she's the better fighter, and the line's coming down for a reason.
I totally agree with you. I think that Judice, if you didn't check her Contender Series fight, which I'm sure Dan you watched, but it was an absolute war where, I mean, like, honestly, she did everything she could to win the fight. The girl she was fighting just kept moving forward, though, and they were just throwing down. Both girls were bloody. I think this is a very interesting fight where if Carly is moving forward on Fernandez, she could be the one just absolutely piecing her apart. But it's definitely a fight I could see her just being the right side here overall. I think Fernandez is good. I think Carly's good too. And she's only had like 4, I think this is her 5th professional fight. And her last fight was the first fight that she got out of the first round. So this girl is very, very raw, but clearly good if she's going right into this fight here. So the UFC thinks she's got talent. And I agree with JBC. I think she's the right side here on this in this fight. So Dan, what do you got?
I'm on the Fernandez side. Mostly, I think she's a better striker. She's got more power. She's got better speed. Judice pushes more of a pace and more volume, but she's got pillow hands. I think Fernandez can actually like hurt somebody. But I think the X factor in this matchup is, will Judice bring any grappling or wrestling to the table? Like, thus far, we haven't seen any out of her, and that's Fernandez's biggest weakness. Outside of that, this is a pretty big step down in competition for Fernandez, and I think she should just win like a one-dimensional kickboxing match pretty handedly. But again, X factor is, does Judice bring any grappling? We haven't seen it. Like you said, she's incredibly raw. I don't necessarily think somebody fighting in the UFC nowadays means that they are ready to fight in the UFC. I mean, we have Weston Wilson on this fucking card. You know what I mean? Jekka Sergey, Jimmy Flick. So, yeah, I just don't really see it. I mean, I watched the Contender Series fight, but, she was also getting the shit kicked out of her. It was, two-way traffic.
Yeah, but she was beating the shit out of the other girl too. It was literally.
Yeah, it's like neither of them have had any finishing power. So it's like you just have these two girls not defending and just throwing back and forth. It's just kind of like, I don't know. I don't see. I guess I don't see what everybody else saw in that performance, if that makes sense.
Yeah, the one thing I will agree with you on is Fernandez, her first couple fights, she lost to girls who are, taking her down, like the Bleda fight where she couldn't get off her back. Like once she was down on her back, she literally, and then she'd do like the BJJ shit off her back and she just gets stuck there. And it's like, okay, that probably won't happen in this fight. So what happens because I don't think Judice is going to grapple and or wrestle her. I don't think she's going to do any of that. I think this is going to stand for 3 rounds. And if it stands for 3 rounds, then I think it's a close fight. But how does Fernandez, fight in that style of fighting? Because when she was standing with Bleda, she was hurting her. So It's not like she has nothing on the feet. She's definitely much better on the feet. If that fight played out all on the feet, she wins that fight, I think 10 out of 10 times, honestly. But it just doesn't. You got to be able to get off your back. I don't think she's going to have to worry about that, though, here. So we could be seeing someone get finished in this fight. Like, I wouldn't be stunned if someone got finished here. The way Carly fights and how hittable she is, but also how she's willing to stand and throw and move forward. So it'll be a good fight. I think it's a good DFS fight here. Let's go to the Jimmy Flick fight, though. You brought it up, Dan, or JBC. I can't remember which one brought up the ownership. But I am not touching Jimmy Flick. He is 6,800 here on this card, fighting Nate Maness. I love Nate Maness as a favorite. He's going to be one of my favorite DFS plays, probably in that 9K range. It's between him and one other guy. but I think it's either him or Almeida as the top two guys with the pricing standpoint. I think he gets the finish here. I don't think he makes the mistake. I mean, like, unless you slip and fall and Jimmy Flick just gets your back somehow on the ground, which if he does, he's slick enough to submit you. But if you don't like do any of that shit and you just keep it standing and don't force a finish and just piece him up, you will eventually finish Jimmy Flick. That was Malcolm Gordon's main problem last fight, was when he hurt him, he kind of kept going and not just letting it happen naturally. And he ended up like whiffing and falling on his knees. And then Jimmy Flick took his back. And that was the wrap with that fight. He got him in the head and arm choke, and it was over real fast. So don't mess with him on the ground. I think he gets finished, probably like, you know, gets pieced up for a full round and gets finished late in that first round, or, you know, or right away. I don't know. But I really like Nate Maness as a DFS play. Dan, what do you got here? Maness and Flick.
Yeah, I like Maness a lot. And originally I was thinking that I would play both sides of this fight, similar to Sergey and Wilson, but it looks like Maness is only going to come in around like just under 40% at like 38. And I think that's kind of low for his finishing upside. Flick is just, you know, he's just not good. He's totally void on the feet. He has 0-0 striking. And like his one path to victory is sort of wrestling you down, trying to submit you, like using his submission grappling. But Maness is sporting like pretty good takedown defense. And that's despite like his first two matchups being, you know, really tough competition. He had Umar Nurmagomedov and then Ulanbekov, who was supposed to be fighting on this card. Like not an easy introduction to the UFC at all. And then last time out, he just absolutely wastes Mateusz Mendonça, who would not let go of like a leg lock. Yeah, I just think Maness is much better than what he's been able to show in the UFC. Like if you look at his stats, he has super low striking volume, but that's mostly because he was getting grappled and taken to the ground. He's not been able to operate in space. Like JBC always likes to say, all the fights start on the feet. I think Flick's going to have a hard time getting this one to the ground. I think Maness just knocks his head off.
Yeah,
maybe sends it back in retirement.
Yeah, and you're looking at when he's finishing fights, he's scoring 100 plus or 100 or more DFS points when he's finishing fights. Maness, it's just like you said, when he's getting grappled to fuck and just, you know, can't help it, can't stop it. That's when he struggles. So I don't think Jimmy Flick's takedowns are any good. So I think he's going to struggle, like I said, outside of something weird happening where he finds a way onto his back. But JBC, I assume you're on the same side as us.
Yeah, the one sure thing from this card is Jimmy Flick is going to the hospital.
Medic.
Win or lose, right?
Win or lose. Yeah, even if he wins, it'll be like after he gets knocked down twice and gets a sub.
Yeah, well, I could even see that too, where he gets like knocked flat on his back, and then like Maness tries to go down to finish him, and then he like finds a way to catch him, reverse positions. Like that's how he'll actually accept like Malcolm Gordon fight. He accepted that first round just being on his back because he knew he was in his element on the ground. So he'll actually accept getting wrestled to just keep the fight there. Mm-hmm. Whereas, like, if I'm a fighter, I'm not even playing that.
Well, I wouldn't want to get punched in the face either.
Yeah.
I don't blame him. I'm just saying, if I'm a fighter, I'm not even going to mess with that. Like, even though I can take you down and I know it because you'll let me, I just want to stand. And like I said, eventually he's going to fall hard. So, yeah, we're all in the same.
Here to try to avoid going to the hospital and to get a paycheck.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a paycheck.
You got to achieve one of those things.
It's a business decision, Dan. All right, he's getting a check. It's just how much is he going to get, and he's probably going to go to the hospital on top of it. So he'll be fine. He'll still get something. So, all right, let's go to the next fight where I'm sure we'll disagree here a little bit. I think this is where the disagreements will start. We got Josh Quinland 8,300 versus Adam Fuget 7,900 here, coming off about a year. I think he hasn't fought in about a year, but when he did fight, His losses are to dudes that are pretty friggin' good. Mike Malott and Michael Morales, where, Morales, he just couldn't get takedowns, which he needs, and couldn't do it. And then he found a finish. Morales did. And then Malott just dominated him. But those are good fighters right there. So I don't hold that against them. I think Quinlan's definitely a step down from those guys. Still not a bad fighter, Quinlan. I see this fight where it could easily be a finish. I think if it goes to decision, though, it's probably Fuget with some takedowns and control time. If it's a finish, I would probably more lean Quinlan by knockout if it were to finish inside the distance. But I wouldn't be shocked if like Fuget found a submission or something like that. I have Fuget winning. I'm leaning that side. I like this fight for DFS. I think there's upside with both guys. So it's a good fight to target for me anyways at these price tags. JVC, what do you got here? Fuget and Quinlan.
I agree that for DFS, you can target both of them, but I like Quinlan to win, and I like Quinlan to win by knockout. I just like the power in his hands. He tends to get in, he likes to get in the pocket and fucking swing with people. And, I don't see, I'm going to choose to pronounce this last name, Fuget. I don't see Fuget being able to hang in there with him. So yes, if he can get his wrestling down, get him down to the ground, sure. But if they stay on the feet, I think Quinlan's got him.
Fuck it. His name's Fuget. Just fuck it.
His name's Fuget.
All right, Dan, who you got here? Break the tie.
I have Quinlan. I actually flip-flop back and forth on this quite a bit. It's not a particularly strong lean, but like JVC said, Quinlan's got the power edge. He's got the speed edge. They're both really hittable. And they've both been hurt recently, but I'm going to side with the guy who's got more power in that instance when you've got like these two, very hurtable guys going up against each other. One thing is like Quinlan has shown like he's had difficulty dealing with fighters who like have more length than him. And Fuget's got the reach advantage here. So that's just like something to know. I still lean on Quinlan though, especially in DFS. He is the best inside the distance, like value outside of the main event on this card. So, he can also get there.
JVC, I want you to answer this question real quick, JVC. Anything here?
I haven't delved into Quinlan's alleged secret juice use, but I need to look into that.
I was going to say that's something that
I usually know. I usually know these things. I know. I usually know when guys are on steroids.
Jason's on point right now. I'm stunned. You didn't have that one ready to go here. Finish your point though, Dan. Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's all right. I mean, that is a good point. Like if he's on the secret juice, then I like him even more. And there's a good chance he is. Yeah, the only other thing I got is just an argument for Fuget. He can find a finish because, like we already said, Quinlan can be hurt. But even if he doesn't, he's got wrestling upside. And Quinlan is a BJJ black belt, but he never uses it. You never see it. So, I mean, that's actually more of an argument for Quinlan, is that like kind of similar to Judice. It's like we haven't seen it, but there could be some grappling upside there. Yeah, for all those reasons, I'm going to lean.
They know where their money is made, dude. It's like when they interviewed Gaethje the other day, and they're like, "Oh, why don't you wrestle? You're an all-American wrestler." He's like, "I don't get paid to fucking wrestle."
Yeah, that's true too.
Yeah, and this is definitely a step down from a striking standpoint, going from left hand to God. Shout out Danny Barlow, to someone like Adam Fuget from for Josh Quinlan. Anyways, like this is definitely a step down in the striking match there. And then he had Trey Waters, which you talked about the reach thing. I feel like Fuget's competition has just been better than those guys that Quinlan's faced. So even though there's losses on both sides and everything, like Michael Morales and Mike Malott and Danny Barlow, even though I love Danny Barlow and he's got one of the best nicknames, but Danny Barlow and Trey Waters, I'm gonna go with the other side there. So I think these guys are super close, and I think it's a good fight for DFS. So, all right, you two are on the Quinlan side. I'm on the Fuget side or Fuget side, and we'll see who wins out here. Let's go to, I think, a little more of an obvious fight here, but we got Asu Almabayev 9,500 for Almeida, coming off a 9 takedown decision win over CJ Vergara, going up against Jose Johnson here, who also is coming off a victory here, submission victory over Chad Anlinger. Don't know what caught me there.
And Helliger.
And Helliger, thank you. 6,700. I fucked it up twice. Yeah, fuck Canadians. I'm sorry if you're Canadian, but screw you. PEREZ, screw you. He's Canadian, and I tell him to fuck off all the time, so it's fine. Who we got here? I think this is Asu all day. I'm going to be playing him in DFS. I think the takedowns are going to be here, even though there's a size advantage. Pretty big. Like Johnson's pretty big. I think he's 6 feet tall for this division. That's huge. I mean, Asu is shorter than me, which is pretty friggin' short if you didn't know. So he's like 5'4", which if he's listed at 5'4", he's probably 5'3", like just throwing that out there. But, you know, either way, I think it's Asu all day. Dan, what do you got?
Yeah, the pick is Almeida. You know, I think Johnson, basically it comes down to Johnson has terrible takedown defense, not a very good ground game. Almeida should be able to exploit that pretty easily. The one thing is Johnson does have some KO power, so he definitely has a puncher's chance. And I think at his ownership, which I have him, he's going to be the lowest owned fighter on the card below Weston Wilson at 11%. I just think like his numbers are terrible. He doesn't rate out well at all, but I'm probably going to end up around like double his projected ownership just because if he knocks out Almeida, Almeida is going to be the second most owned fighter on the card. So you have massive leverage there. And I don't know. He hasn't really been tested on the feet. So, you know, I think everybody's just a little bit overconfident in Almeida being able to hang on the feet with Johnson.
I would play him over Jimmy Flick.
I was about to say the same fucking thing.
I would definitely play him over Jimmy Flick. So
yeah, he's a much better player than Flick.
Yeah. So JBC, some people are asking. I see our guy Linnell Turner. He's a fan of the show. He says Johnson split decision. Boss Bro says Johnson sneaky here. Jason Graham talking about, you know, Johnson off his back and, you know, his BJJ. It seems like there's some people in the chat who think this is a closer fight than what the odds say, which I'm pretty sure this is the biggest. Asu's the biggest favorite on the card.
No, Maness is.
Oh, Maness is? Okay, so second biggest favorite.
That's crazy. These are really big numbers for a flyweight fight. Like flyweights are almost always competitive. More competitive than the lines would indicate. So, and Johnson's not Jimmy Flick, so that's a huge plus for him.
I feel like Almeida is probably like a natural 115 and not a 125. So, you know, he's obviously always going to be giving up size to an extent, and you know, Johnson could put him out. I don't see why he couldn't. He's got a puncher's chance.
How does he get down to 125?
I don't understand how he makes the weight. I literally don't get it.
We're the same height, and I walk around at like 170.
You're real thin. You're real thin.
Yeah.
JVC, think about this though. You said like Asu's probably really like a real 115er. Right. Like at that, and John, like we're talking about how does this dude make that weight, but it's that's why Asu is going to have like the cardio advantage over almost everyone because like he's like walking around under and he's super in shape, obviously. But like Jose's got to feel drained every time he cuts down to 120, like absolutely drained.
Yeah, I mean, this is a classic argument, but you know, Deron Wynn didn't do too well at middleweight, so I understand the upside of Jose Johnson. I just know that Almeida, the wrestle humping is going to be so hard to deal with if he doesn't knock him out. You know, I understand the maybe getting a sub off his back with all the length, but I like Almeida to win. I think Johnson is a better DFS play.
All right. Yeah, I like it. I mean, I think Almeida, some people are saying he won't be able to hold them down. For DFS, I think it's good.
Well, that's great for DFS.
Because we're going to get 9 takedowns again. So, you know, if he gets up and then you put him back, that's kind of what you want. anyways. So
another knock on Almeida and sort of an argument for Johnson too is that like he doesn't seem to pursue finishes all that urgently. Like he'll take you down, he'll get you in a body triangle, he'll get on your back, and then he's down to just kind of like hang out there and sort of hit you a few times from your back and win the round. The longer he lets Johnson stick around,
the more chances he has. Yeah,
more chances for him to knock him out. So he
definitely feels like a control over like finish type guy. Asu is where he's trying to like control you. He's kind of waiting for you to like make a big mistake and then he'll jump on that opportunity, but he's not trying to just finish you. So that is a good point.
Which Johnson probably will make a big mistake trying some sort of explosive action. But the question is, does he win before that? Probably not, but it's worth a shot at 6,700.
Yeah. All right. I was gonna nix him from my pool. Maybe I'll bring him back in and give him respect 5% or something like that. He's still gonna be like the lowest owned guy on the card, right, Dan? So you don't have to go that crazy on Johnson to get some of him for DFS anyways. And JBC said he's probably a better DFS play. So get a little of him. Let's go to the next fight here on the card. And this is a fight me and JBC were actually discussing before we got on here. We've got high stand, we got Armfield. High stand 7,500, Armfield 8,700 on DraftKings here. And I think this is Armfield all day. I think high stand, like he wants to wrestle. He's really got nothing on the feet though. And Armfield just fought Brad Katona, who is more well-rounded, has the wrestling, has better stand-up than this guy. And I thought that fight was super close, and I gave the fight to Armfield. I know some people said, Katona ended up winning the fight, but I thought it was a really close fight. I just don't think high stand's going to have much for Armfield here, and I think this is an easy Armfield decision, probably 29-28. So I don't really like high stand as much as maybe people will for DFS, and this is going to be one of my bigger fades on the card because I assume he's going to get ownership, and Dan, we'll get to you in a sec, but JBC, what are you seeing here with this fight?
Yeah, I really, really like Armfield for DFS and as a bet. High stand, I do not think has the tools to compete with him on the feet. I think Armfield's going to put him out before he can get him down. So I understand high stand's wrestling upside and why people like to take him for DFS, but that is the exact type of fighter that I like to fade, is these wrestle heavy, especially an underdog. An underdog that's completely reliant on wrestling who is a decent chance to get knocked out? Absolutely not. Armfield all day.
All right. I like it. Dan, do you have the same confidence in Mr. Armfield?
I do. Yeah, I'm on Armfield. Basically everything JBC said, he's got him everywhere. Well, so high stand may have the wrestling advantage, but the problem is like when high stand gets him to the mat, Armfield has him completely covered in the grappling. So I don't think high stand can really do anything to him, even if he gets him down. So I think Armfield should win pretty easily. And you can see like a lot of like sloppy wrestling and grappling exchanges because Armfield's not like a world beater or anything. So I think Armfield, even though he doesn't like project all that well from, he doesn't project all that. Well, I guess he actually does. Wait, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong thing. Yeah, he doesn't project all that well, but I think there's a lot of opportunity for some like sloppy exchanges between these two. A lot of like wrestling, grappling upside. Like JBC said, Armfield could get a finish. And yeah, high stand's going to be, he's projecting it like 30% owned.
That's insane.
That's fucking awesome. Like I'm going to play 10% of him.
Yes.
And be like, why? And then after the fight, I'm going to be like, why did I waste 10% on this fucking loser? But I mean, this probably just not playing high stand is probably one of the better like leverage plays you can make today.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the way I'm leaning to. Just take him out of the pool. We got our boy Stevie Boynton in chat. JBC, I'll throw this one to you here. Any Sabre rules for today? Playing 20, need to run it now. Heading to Wrigley in a few. You got any rules?
Well, with 20, for this card specifically, with how few fights there are, I think you want to focus on getting two of the top guys in and forcing in one of TAIRA and PEREZ.
All right, so two like 9K guys, or would you add like the Armfields?
No, two of Almeida, Maness, and Sergey, and then one of TAIRA or PEREZ.
and then just run it from there. I like that. With only 11 fights on the card too, I do think, more rules if you're playing less makes a little more sense here. I really like getting one of those chick fights in there too. That's just me personally. If I was playing only 20 lineups,
you're going to end up with a lot of the chicks playing 2 of the top.
That's a good point, because it's going to force in more dogs, like the 2 chicks and Weston Wilson and maybe some Jose Johnson, just naturally. Good point. All right, there you go. If you're playing 20 max, that's what JBC would do. I like it for some rules there. Let's go to, we got 3 more fights to break down here, running through this card. Let's go to this fight here. I really like a bet in this fight here. We got Lucas Almeida, 7,400 for Almeida against Timmy Kumba, 8,800 here for Kumba. JBC, I'm pretty sure you're on the same side as me. What do you like here, Almeida, Kumba?
I'm a bit conflicted here, because to me, the best DFS play down there at the base is Almeida, but I like Kumba to win the fight. So I'm going to be playing a lot of them a lot of them in DFS, but I'm probably going to be heavier on Almeida in DFS than I am on Kumba, despite having Kumba as a bet, which, a lot of people can't fathom having 2 things be true at once, but I think those things are both true at once, because I think the fight ends in a finish.
Yeah, well, they can't fathom it because it confuses them, because you like one for a DFS play, but you like the other one in a bet. So they're like, you're going against
yourself.
Yeah, exactly. You're going against yourself. So it's almost like a natural hedge, though, in a way, right, JBC? And I think that's the way. Again, I'm not trying to talk for you, but as just someone who, I don't do this very often. Very often do I bet someone who I have the other opponent on in DFS, but I understand the hedge idea of it, especially if you're conflicted on a certain fight, JBC. And I would assume that's kind of your reasoning behind it.
It's not the intent, but it is certainly a side effect.
Yeah.
Like last week, I bet heavy on Imavov. Even though I needed him heavy in DFS, or I had him like 60% in DFS, I ended up needing him to lose, to win the tournament, because that's how fantasy works.
Yeah. You didn't need was the finish. Yeah. Right. You didn't need that finish. So, yeah. Dan, what do you got here on this fight? Almeida, Kumba.
Oh, I was just going to say, though, like, you ever watching the fights with your friends and they're like, who do you need here? And you're like, I just need violence. I need someone to die.
You mean every time I watch a fight with somebody? I need every time. Suck.
Sitting there watching 2 guys push each other against the cage. You're like, this is great for me. I fucking love this. Yeah, no, in this fight, though, I'm on the Almeida side. I don't understand this line. I understand that JBC is going with Kumba because of the line movement, but I just can't get there because I just don't see it. I don't get the love for this for Kumba. Almeida has actually faced UFC level competition. He hasn't done well, but he actually has. And I just like his style more. He's like an aggressive brawler. He'll come forward. He's going to try to finish the fight. And I just haven't seen enough from Kumba to want to lay like almost minus 200 on him and pay 8,800 for him. I just don't see it. I could be completely missing something. But yeah, I mean, as far as this fight goes, DFS wise, I'm definitely going to be much heavier on Almeida. And I wish Kumba was going to be higher owned, but I understand why he's not because of the range he's in.
Yeah.
But yeah, but again, like it seems straightforward, but what's that line all about? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on the. I'm like what Dan said is exactly how I feel about this fight. Like, I don't really get it. The Almeida side just seems to be the side. Like, I just think I think his style. I think he's going to bring out a good fight, though. That's the one thing from like DFS side. We talk about it all the time. Like, his style might create a good fight for DFS, but I think he could finish this fight. I think he could finish it inside the distance. And at 7,400. If I think this dude has a decent shot to finish inside the distance, I just got to be overweight on Almeida. So he does seem like one of the best dogs just looking at the card straight up. He, in that like 7K range, I would take him over high stand.
He's just such a better DFS play than pretty much everybody in the range other than Alex PEREZ. And
He's not owned like it. He's one of the lower owned in the range.
I don't understand that. I need to see that to believe it. My guess in my head is that Lucas Almeida is going to be like 40% owned.
Yeah, well, if you're right on that, then you're wrong on the chicks being high owned.
That's true.
So like it's one or the other.
Unless the bottom three are just like nothing.
Yeah, well, that could be too, but because I thought, like you, JVC, that Lucas Almeida would be like 40% owned. Just looking at the card, just when I looked at it before, this morning, I'm like, okay, people are going to be on Almeida. This isn't a secret. Like he has KO upside. He can finish this thing, but maybe not. So we'll see here. But it seems like we all like him, especially for DFS, as a good play, 7,400. I'm not really going to be in on Kumba at 8,800. Kind of same feelings as Dan. Just I don't see it. So
the thing about Kumba in DFS is, as Dan stated, Almeida's going to push it. When you push it, there is downside there, and that could push Kumba's score up.
Yep. Yeah, 100%. We see it all the time with those type of fights. So maybe he does push something, and it turns into a brawl, and maybe Almeida loses the brawl. It could very well happen. So we'll see here. We got 2 more fights left on the card. We got Silva de Andrade, 8,200 for Andrade versus Miles Johns, 8K for Miles Johns. This is definitely going to be one of those fights. I feel like you could probably go get a beer, miss the first round, outside of like de Andrade catching him with something big, some big action. I think it's a Miles Johns just decision win. Like, I don't think it's a good fight for DFS. I think if it is a good fight for DFS, it's de Andrade who's scoring well, because I think that means he caught Miles Johns with just some big, spinning action or something, because he does have those, and he does have power when he throws. But I just don't see it. Miles Johns, for me, as a bet, I really like him as a bet, not as a DFS play as much. I prefer other guys in his range, so I'm lower on this fight for DFS, but I love Miles Johns as a bet. I think he's right now around like minus 130 or 140. And I like it. So, JBC, tell me if I'm wrong on Miles Johns.
Agreed on all counts. It's going to be a snoozer. Miles Johns, 30-27. Just strike him. He's better everywhere, unless, as you said, unless it's some sort of explosive action that catches him, which I don't foresee happening here. Miles Johns is the more technical guy, and I expect him to win.
Yep, 100%. I would say, I think de Andrade is the more dangerous guy, but I think Miles Johns has him everywhere, just everywhere
I also don't
else.
see Miles Johns as being particularly susceptible to getting caught with something.
Yeah, he's a smart fighter, right? Yeah, or smarter, I guess, in my head. That's how I would see him. So we got Matty Ice in the chat. What's up, Matty Ice? So all right, we're both on that side. Dan, you want to make it 3 for 3 on Mr. Johns?
Yeah, I'm on Johns. And I agree with pretty much everything you guys said. I'm going to be really low on this fight for DFS. Like, this fight as a whole and high standard are probably going to be my biggest fades on the entire card. I just don't see either of these guys getting there in a decision. It's not very likely it ends in a finish, and a finish is what either of these guys is going to need to contend for the optimal, I think. Just very little interest, but I do think Johns, I think Johns is definitely the rightful pick, the rightful favorite. The line has moved that way. de Andrade is just old. He's 38. He's a 38-year-old bantamweight.
Yes. You're with me.
JVC hates the olds. He hates all the olds.
I'm trying to do a hardcore ageist.
If you are not a heavyweight and you're old, get the fuck out of here. Heavyweights though, you could be fucking 45 and fight at heavyweight.
Post USADA, de Andrade, mythical fighter.
That's a good point. That's a good point. The secret juice.
Well, interesting note about Johns too is he got his win over Dan Argueta overturned to a no contest because he popped for a substance, and then they later on made that substance legal, but didn't give his win back, and they made it legal because of him. So that's really
dumbest thing ever. Just absolute. What are you? Give him his win back if you're going to make it legal. I mean, come on. Give him his damn win back. That's the case.
Yeah, he needs to get on the harder shit. Get some knockouts.
yeah, he definitely does. I could see him too, just like trying to grapple early just to try and tire out D'Andrade's arms, because he does have those, like, he's kind of jacked, D'Andrade, but when he gets, like, when you grapple him early, which is kind of what happened 2 fights ago in the Nurmagomedov fight, like early in that fight, they were against the cage, like grappling for a while. And then after that, he was like shaking out his arms for the whole rest of that round. And I could see Miles Johns trying to like wrestle or grapple him early just to tire him out a little bit, take a little bit off the big actions, and, then just kind of ride out a 29-28 decision here. So I think he's definitely a good bet. We all agree on that. Let's go to the main event, where we probably will not all agree, but that is okay. We've got Tatsuro Taira, 15-0 Taira here, 8,600 on DraftKings. It's pretty much been awesome for DraftKings scoring 97 to about 107 points in all of his fights. He is a high-level grappler going up against Alex Perez, again taking another fight here after winning the fight against Matthias Nicolau on short notice. Comes back again here, 7,600 for Perez. He's got a tough task in front of him. He struggled with some grapplers. Now, very high-level grapplers, I will say, but Taira does seem like he's close to those type of just high-level grapplers. I won't say he's just as good or he's better, but he's definitely close to those guys. It's definitely his key to winning this fight here, but it's also his toughest test. I mean, he's fought in dudes that are literally out of the UFC. I mean, Chirez, like I don't even think he's in the UFC anymore, and that was 2 fights ago. So I don't want to just crown this dude like the best fighter ever. I think Perez is a good test for him. This would be a quality win if he could find a way to finish him. That would be impressive to me, but I need to see it. I'm on the Perez side. I'm on the veteran. I think he can make it at least difficult enough for Taira and maybe make this a close decision win or find a late finish in the 4th and 5th round. Maybe Taira gets a little tired from all the grappling, and in the later rounds, he finds a finish here. So I'm on the Perez side. JBC, what do you got here, Perez and Taira?
I agree with pretty much everything you're saying. It's a massive step up for Taira. Obviously he was not originally intended to be in this fight. I forget who it was that got scratched from the card. But to take this kind of fight shows that he wants to step up, and they were kind of taking him along slowly. And he said, you know what, fuck it, I'm not having it. I want this high level fight. And it's just Taira, elite wrestler, but how good do we know that he really is when he's fought nobody? And Alex Perez, we've seen him against the top level competition. We saw him even the Figueiredo fight for the title when he got guillotined. He was beating Figueiredo on the feet, and so you wonder how Taira is going to be able to deal with somebody that can strike like Alex Perez when they're standing. That said, Alex Perez has not shown to be the greatest at defending, grappling exchanges and getting taken down. And Taira, a lot of his takedowns come from clinches and other sorts of, scenarios like that where that turn into scrambles, and he gets on top. And, I don't see Perez being able to stop him from doing that. That said, I'm very, very intrigued by this fight. This is kind of a fuck around and find out moment for Taira. And, I think I am much more intrigued by this main event than whatever the one prior was.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think this is a very good fight. I think it's a perfect step-up fight for Taira. Yeah. I think it's perfect. We'll know at the end of this fight if he's that elite of the elite in this division, or if, he's just below that elite, which would be fine if he is, just below.
This reminds me of when Edmund Shabazian fought Brunson in terms of step up, and then we'll find out.
Yeah, and you know what? The one thing with Taira is, his takedowns, like you said, they come a lot from the clinch. He's not like a wrestler. Like Makayev is like a chain wrestler. Like when you watch the Makayev fight, it's not that style. You know what I mean? It's different than that type of style. So what happens if PEREZ can use his footwork, can, you know, almost like keep him at range, use his kicks, because he's got nasty low kicks. I mean, we saw him striking last fight, but he's got absolute nasty low kicks. What happens if he can do that and just keep it at distance? It's going to be tough, you know, in Vegas here, but I do think that's his path, right? Is like try and keep this standing for as long as possible, stay safe if he gets to the ground, work his way back up safely, and then maybe in the later rounds is when he kind of puts it on. Maybe all the grappling from the early rounds tires Tatsuro out, and that's when PEREZ can put it on and find a way to get it done there. But I do agree with you. Very interesting fight. Dan, what do you see here in this fight?
I'm also on TAIRA for a lot of similar reasons to JBC. I just think that, like, I mean, for one thing, TAIRA's greatest strength is PEREZ's greatest weakness. And PEREZ's greatest strength, his striking, I think it's a little closer on the feet than most people think. And it's certainly closer than like TAIRA's grappling advantage versus PEREZ. Having said that, you know, you can see either of these guys winning. Like PEREZ can definitely, you know, knock someone out, hurt them really bad. TAIRA obviously has keep saying it, massive grappling advantage. You're full shoving this fight 100%. Like the projections right now, I have the field getting to this fight 85% of the time, which is asinine. I don't understand at all. Like this is a quintessential like full shove this fight because it's reasonably priced. You got 8,600, 7,600, and the ceilings on these guys are sky high for their most obvious win condition. And then also like even if it goes to decision, you know, you've got flyweights who are
always shove little boy main event.
Yeah, like this is just such an obvious no-brainer full shove spot. And I was looking back on some of my old sheets and workbooks and whatever from this time last year, because I had this stretch where I was live going to the final fight like for about a month and a half, and I was like, what was I doing back then? And I was going much heavier on who I thought was going to win the main event. And recently I've kind of been splitting it more. So I think today I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna get back on my bullshit, go back to my old ways, and I'm gonna be very heavy on TAIRA, but I'm gonna be 100% on this fight for sure.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm gonna be 100% on this fight too. Like you said, great fight for DFS. We'll see. We'll see if he can get it done here. Do you think this finishes inside the distance, or are you guys calling it for decision? How do you have TAIRA winning, Dan?
I have TAIRA finishing him.
Finish, JBC?
I think it finishes one way or another.
I think it finishes too, one way or another. So I have PEREZ finishing, but should be an interesting fight. That at least, I can't wait for that fight at the end. Some of the other fights, but that fight should be a good one. So I like that. Let's give our favorite bet of the day before we get out of here. JBC, do you have a favorite? Like, if you could only bet one, you got a top bet for the people?
Miles Johns, just money line. Yeah, Miles Johns like money line.
Dan, favorite bet for the people?
Mine was Miles Johns money line.
All right, Dan, second favorite bet for the people.
TAIRA by sub.
Dude, you love giving out. You're like me. You love giving out submission props. I noticed this. I didn't want to say anything to you, but I think like the last 5 videos we've done, every single video you've given someone to win by submission. I don't.
It always looks too high. It always looks too high.
It always does look too high. Yeah, this one is not high, but I think it's gonna happen. So yeah, I mean, I'm gonna go with the first fight of the night. I'm gonna take a dog here. Julia Pastri money line plus 164. Nice.
I like that. So. Yeah, those are the 11 fights on the card here. We got everything you need over at Run Pure Sports. RPS15 is the promo code right now. Get yourself 15% off your first monthly or weekly payment. We got everything. We got soccer. I know we put up the Euros package. If anyone's interested in Euro soccer, big DFS tournament. JBC hit a winner early this morning with plus 115 for Switzerland. I got on that, so thank you, JBC. And we got all the bets. Every fight, JBC puts out bets for all these soccer, matches, as they would say, right, JBC? They're matches in soccer. I'm correct there?
Yes. Good job.
I try my best.
Armenia's not in the Euros. They didn't make it.
We are not soccer players. I'll tell you that right now. We definitely suck at soccer. So that makes sense. But if we got everything from soccer to, finals, NBA, MMA, come check us out. Golf's going on, US Open. I know there's a big showdown for the round 4 tomorrow. So we'll have everything, all the content up over at Run Pure Sports. RPS15 is your promo code. And with that, we're going to get out of here. For JBC, for Dan, and myself, good luck to everyone in your MMA contest and bets. We'll see you guys next Saturday.
Peace.